course, this is before we have a first debate. And, you know, in a sensible election, you might want to wait until you have debates before you start.
Which would have happened in North Carolina with the
exactly.
debate next week. But you can see all across Wisconsin, it varies municipality by municipality, but mail-in voting September 19th. Michigan, absentee and mail-in September 21st. So this whole thing, by the way, about Kamala Harris and does she give interviews or not, she really only has to hold out for another week or two, you know, and then people vote based upon how little information is available. And then there's this, the key political events as we talked about, how long she has to hold out. In the debate, September 10th, and then the vice presidential debate, the beginning of October, Charlie.
And then, of course, Election Day. And I do think it's really interesting to remember that the whole fight going on with RFK right now is Democrats want to keep someone on the ballot who's not running for president. Democrats are fighting to get voters, to trick voters into voting for somebody who's not running for president. That ought to tell you, smart tactically, but it ought to tell you something.
And, of course, their argument is always going to be more people voting, more opportunities to vote. But at some point when you have election season, you're voting specifically this time with a candidate who has not revealed themselves to the public.
Right. Exactly.
All they had to hold out was a couple of weeks.
And the fact that we're only having one debate is kind of amazing.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. That's the information you need to know now when election season begins. For now, we'll go over to Rachel.
I'm an old-fashioned girl. I love just vote on Election Day. I think it should be a holiday. And I believe in paper ballots. So there you go. All right. Vice President Harris flip-flopping on yet another issue, banning plastic straws. Here's what she said when she ran for president the first time.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should. Yes. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's really difficult to drink out of a paper straw when you had, if you're just, like, if you don't gulp it down immediately, it starts to bend.
Yes.
And then, you know, the little thing catches it. And then, you know, so we got to kind of perfect that one a little bit more. I think we could do a little bit better than some of those flimsy plastic straws. But we do need to ban the plastic.
But now her team says she doesn't support banning plastic straws. Here to react is ClimateDepot.com publisher Mark Morano. So what is this epiphany about? What made her change her mind about plastic straws?
We don't know because like every other epiphany she's had, whether it's on fracking now, EVs, oil and gas, all of these reversals of her previous opinions are quietly released by basically unnamed campaign officials. The campaign now says she no longer supports that. What? No explanations given. The obvious here is she knows that plastic straw bans are wildly unpopular, and she's doing everything she can to scrub her history of the fact that she was the original co-sponsor of AOC's Green New Deal back in 2019. So she is desperate. And keep in mind, in D.C. government right now, in Washington, D.C., they have straw cops out, and they have tip lines for your neighbors to snitch on small businesses. Everything from Uber Eats to your local corner restaurant. If you catch them serving foam or plastic straws or paper cups, anything like that, they want everything to be recyclable, and they want you to snitch. So people have had it with these kind of bans on this nonsense.
Yeah, they absolutely have. By the way, paper straws now, they're saying have forever chemicals. So everything they're for ends up being a bad idea. Let's talk about Volvo, because there was a lot of euphoria on the greenie side about, you know, EVs. Everyone was going to go to EVs, but the demand for it just never materialized. What's happening here?
This is Volvo joining VW, joining Ford, joining Chrysler, joining Mercedes, joining Porsche, joining Tesla. We are seeing an utter wholesale collapse of the demand for any EVs. In other words, I think it was a Toyota vice president who actually said most of the people who wanted an EV have already bought it. What does that mean? 7% of cars, maybe a little over that. Over 90% are gas-powered. Volvo realized that they had a goal of 100% electric by 2030. Guess what their numbers are in 2024? They're barely at 25%. They're not even at 25%. It's all virtue signaling. It's corporate government collusion. Ultimately, these companies are taking hundreds of millions in federal funds. Look at what Stellantis did. Took hundreds of millions for EVs, no sales demand, and now they're laying off Michigan workers. They took American taxpayer money, a foreign-owned corporation, and now they're taking the money and running, and American workers are suffering. That's the reality of the EV mandates and the gas gas-powered car bans of this administration.
Well, we also have to talk about windmills because there's also been a problem there as well. So these windmills, you know, I don't like them. I think they're ugly. I think they're bird killers. I think they're whale killers. Now pieces of them are falling off of Martha's Island, and all the rich people are getting upset. So let's talk about these windmills.
Yeah, the windmills, everyone's like, well, we have to have wind and solar. 82% of U.S. energy is fossil fuels. Global, the electricity rate of solar and wind don't even hit 14%. It's like 13.9%. There is no there at the moment. The idea that we can mandate these sources of energy is absurd on the thing. There's no cost-benefit analysis. In other words, they don't produce the electricity. Now, having said that, we have conservation groups saying in the last half of a century they've never seen whale mortality, whale deaths like we've seen, and they're blinking it to this. Remember, every offshore wind you see is the blades are the length of a football field, the height is the high as the Eiffel Tower, and they go 200 miles an hour. Of course, off Martha's Vineyards, these giant windmill broke off. We have shards of fiberglass all over some of the wealthiest beaches in the world. That's the way to end these wind mandates, by the way, and the subsidies, is to get rich people who are normally virtue signal. Oh, of course we want windmills. Once it's in their backyard, we may see the end of this nonsense.
Yeah, by the way, I'm glad you described how large they are. They are impossible to dispose of.
Massive.
They're an ecological disaster.
Yes.
Mark Morano, always great having you on. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it.
So much green insanity.
قدم رابح سعدان مدرب منتخب الجزائر لكرة القدم استقالته من منصبه اليوم السبت بعد تعادل مخيب للآمال في بداية مشوار الفريق في تصفيات المؤهلة لنهائيات كأس الأمم الإفريقية 2012. وقال الاتحاد الجزائري لكرة القدم بموقعه على الانترنت: قدم رابح سعدان استقالته من الجهاز الفني للمنتخب. وأضاف أيضا: قدم رئيس الاتحاد الجزائري لكرة القدم الشكر لسعدان على العمل الجيد الذي قام به مع المنتخب. وقاد سعدان البالغ من العمر 64 عاما الذي درب الجزائر عدة مرات بين 1986 و 2010 منتخب بلاده للتأهل لنهائيات كأس العالم في جنوب إفريقيا على حساب مصر، لكن الخروج من دور المجموعات والفشل في تحقيق أي فوز أو تسجيل أي هدف أدى إلى توجيه سيل من الانتقادات